Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This story is about, what if Igris became the next Shadow Monarch? Before we start, please support the channel with likes and comments for part 2. Subscribe and share this video, let's dive in. The city lay shrouded beneath a tumultuous sky, a landscape scarred by war and tearing realities. Lightning slashed the heavens, illuminating the ruins with cold, brilliant light. The streets were choked with debris and silence, save for the occasional distant echo of footsteps or faint whispers carried on the wind. This place, once a thriving metropolis, was now a hollow shell, shattered by forces unseen in the inexorable passage of fate. Amidst the rubble, a presence emerged, a form sculpted from shadow and light, gliding with measured grace. It was Igris, sovereign of shadows reborn, no longer merely a blade in the dark but the Shadow Monarch himself, his blackened armor shimmering with ethereal energy, blue flames dancing along his form. He paused, taking in the city's desolation with eyes that held the weight of all time. 1,000 memories flared within, loyalty in battle beside Sung Jinwoo, sacrifices made in silence, the bond of shadow and man. Around him, the shadows stirred, coalescing into phantom warriors armed with spectral blades and unyielding resolve. This was no longer the Igris of old but a king set to carve a new destiny. As dawn crept hesitantly over the horizon, the city's scattered survivors and hunters looked upon the new monarch with a mixture of awe and fear. Some whispered prayers, others gripped weapons tighter. The rise of a shadow monarch meant change, dangerous and irrevocable. Beneath the surface, quiet currents of rebellion and allegiance swirled. Ancient monarchs observed from distant realms, their intentions inscrutable. Factions jockeyed for power, and the Hunter Association struggled to hold together within the storm's eye. Igris's mind raced between memories and plans, his path fraught with peril from enemies seen and unseen. A sudden shiver ran down his spine, a shadow approaching. From the mist materialized a figure veiled in darkness moving swiftly toward him. In this moment, the game of monarchs and hunters would begin anew. The shadowy figure revealed itself as one of the Hunter Association's elite, a woman with steely eyes and a blade always ready. She was there to test the new monarch, to gauge whether this rise meant salvation or devastation. Her voice was calm but resolute. Igris, or whatever you call yourself now, this city, this world, needs protectors, not tyrants. Igris regarded her quietly. Power demands balance, and sacrifice. I am here to restore that balance. A clash of ideals sparked between them, light and shadow intertwining with the clang of steel. Meanwhile, across the fractured city, divided hunter factions mobilized. Some saw hope in uniting behind the Shadow Monarch's cause, believing change was necessary. Others feared the loss of freedom, wary of monarch domination. Cha Hae-in emerged prominently, a warrior burdened by her own nascent monarchical power, yet fiercely devoted to protecting humanity's fragile thread. She navigated political intrigues with shrewd tact and unyielding spirit, gathering allies while watching the shadowy monarch's every move. In hidden chambers, rival monarchs whispered of impending war. Old grudges and new ambitions fueled a rising storm of conflict that threatened to engulf all realms. Igris moved through this web of power with a measured stride, forging uneasy bonds and confronting inevitable betrayals. Amid the rising chaos, memories of Jinwoo lingered, a distant light in a darkening world. The loyalty once shared was a bittersweet echo pushing Igris forward when doubts threatened to consume him. The stage was set. The shadows were alive, and a new chapter of war and hope was about to unfold. The moon hung low over the city's crumbled roofs, casting long shadows that twisted and writhed like living serpents. Within the palace built from the ruins of reality, Igris sat alone, his form draped in a gown of twilight and sorrow. Visions flared in his mind, memories fragmented yet vivid. The day he swore loyalty to Jinwoo. The silent battles fought in unspoken agreement. The trust forged in shadows and steel. Even now, those bonds stirred deep beneath his monarchical might. But the crown was heavy. The whispers of ancient monarchs echoed around him, a litany of warnings and curses bound by time. To wield the mantle was to walk a razor's edge between salvation and annihilation. Shadows danced along the walls as the monarch pondered the delicate chessboard of alliances and threats. Outside, treacherous winds carried news of a rising rebellion, hunters that refused monarch rule, militants clad in defiance and flame. Their leader, a fierce unknown, struck with ruthless precision, challenging the fragile order Igris sought to build. A sudden alert shattered the silence, a covert assassination attempt. Goblins cloaked in darkness breached the monarch's defenses, shadows clashing violently in corridors. Igris rose swiftly, summoning phantom blades and shadow soldiers to hold the attackers at bay. The battle was fierce but brief. Igris's power was absolute, yet every strike cost focus and strength. The lingering sting of vulnerability reminded him that even monarchs could bleed. Later, in council chambers, words were war. Allies whispered betrayals, rivals plotted in silence. Igris realized that survival hinged not on raw might alone but on cunning, alliances, and sacrifices unseen. He recalled the fragile humanity Jinwoo had fought to protect, a humanity Igris himself was struggling to reclaim amid power's consuming tide. The night deepened, monarchs abroad readied their armies. The storm had only begun. The dawn broke slowly, like a promise unfulfilled, as Igris surveyed the fractured city from his shadowed throne. The battles ahead would test everything, his will, his loyalty, and the fragile alliance he sought to forge between hunter and monarch. In the council chamber, allies gathered. Cha Hae-in stood tall, her presence commanding respect amidst the murmurs and wary glances. Though marked by the fledgling glow of monarch power, her resolve was unshaken by the shadows encroaching upon their world. Silent agreements were exchanged alongside veiled threats. Every word measured, every gesture loaded with unspoken meaning. Igris spoke of balance, a world where shadows and light must coexist or both would perish. Outside, factions grew restless. Zealots preached of monarch righteousness, rebels schemed beneath the veil of night. Amidst this, Igris sought moments of quiet reflection. His mind wandered to Jinwoo, the hunter who never wielded the system, yet whose spirit echoed in whispers of rebellion and hope. A messenger arrived with urgent news. A massive gate was opening near the city outskirts, threatening to unleash horrors beyond imagining. The council plunged into action, hunters and monarch soldiers uniting to face the encroaching darkness. The battle was brutal, a symphony of steel, flame, and shadow. Igris led from the front, his shadow soldiers clashing with monstrous beasts while hunter marksmen covered the flanks. Amidst chaos, moments of heroism and heartbreak intertwined. Victory was hard-won but came with a steep price, losses that weighed heavily on the monarch's soul. As night descended once more, the war's true scale became clear, a relentless tide beyond brute strength, demanding alliances, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. Please confirm if I should continue immediately with Section 5 to complete Chapter 1, culminating in climax and setup for next chapter. This section will round out the chapter towards your requested length. Each segment is designed to blend seamlessly for a cohesive, immersive reading experience. Chapter 1, Shadows Stir, Section 5, approximately 3,000–5,000 words. The city had survived the night's storm, but at great cost. The bloodied streets whispered of fallen heroes and hardened survivors. Igris retreated to his chambers, weary and burdened. There, alone and shrouded in the fading light, the monarch faced his deepest fears, not of enemies outside, but of the shadow growing within. Visions flickered, memories of friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice mixed with the cold realities of monarch power. He touched the phantom blade at his side, a symbol of his past and present. A knock at the door broke the silence. A trusted aide entered bearing urgent news. A realm beyond their own was stirring, a power awakening that might tip the scales of this fragile war. Igris stood, resolve hardening. His path was laden with peril, betrayal, and the weight of countless lives. But the monarch's crown was not just a symbol of dominion, it was a beacon of hope. As dawn's first light broke over the horizon, Igris pledged to walk the shadows, not as a tyrant, but as a guardian fighting for a new dawn. The sun's first rays attempted to pierce the heavy veil of clouds, casting a pallid glow over the remnants of the city. The battered streets whispered stories of sacrifice, resilience, and the relentless tide of shadows that threatened to engulf what remained of the world. In the heart of this fractured landscape, Igris stood atop a crumbling tower, his silhouette etched against the dawn. The weight of the crown pressed down on his shoulders, an unspoken burden that shaped the dawn of a new era. Memories of Jinwoo flickered in his mind, the unwavering gaze, the silent resolve, the sacrifices made in shadows. Jinwoo's spirit lingered, a haunting reminder of what true strength meant. The city trembled, an ominous prelude to a new storm brewing beyond the horizon. Distant realms stir, ancient monarchs awaken from their slumber, and the delicate balance of power teeters on the brink of chaos. In this moment, Igris made a silent vow. To protect, to serve, but never to forget the cost of his ascension. The shadows had become his allies and his chains, a testament to the history carved in darkness. As the world awoke once more, the monarch prepared for the battles ahead, knowing that every shadow would be a witness, every star a silent observer of his unwavering resolve. The game of kings had begun anew, and Igris was its most formidable player. The pall of uncertainty hung thick in the air, clinging to every stone and shadow in the city struggling to breathe beneath war's heavy hand. The rise of Igris as Shadow Monarch had sent ripples through every strata of power, from hunter guilds shrouded in secrecy to the lofty thrones of ancient monarchs. In a hidden chamber just beyond the shattered palace, a gathering unfolded. Monarchs of fire, light, and storm convened, not as allies, but as wary observers wary of the new king risen from Shadow's depths. Their voices were low, biting with suspicion and veiled threats. No monarch has ever risen from shadows alone and survived, intoned Zarathos, monarch of flame, his blazing crown shimmering even in the dim light. He bears the burden of loyalty, but those bonds may shackle him to weakness, added Lumia, the silver monarch whose light could pierce the darkest night. Meanwhile, Igris pondered the words from Shadow's whispers, ancient knowledge bound in cryptic riddles about balance, power, and the cost of kingship. The memories of Jinwoo, the hunter unblessed but undaunted, clashed with his new reality. Duty versus loyalty, power versus humanity. As monarchs schemed and plotted, hunters below braced for consequences that would ripple through realms and reorder destinies. Cha Hae-in stood in the war council, determination etched in every line of her face. Newly awakened monarch power coursed faintly in her veins, a symbol of hope for many, but a source of conflict and fear for herself. The city below her was both cradle and crucible, a battlefield where survival meant navigating perilous alliances, political intrigue, and relentless monsters. She prepared to lead, but questions gnawed at her heart. Could light endure unchecked shadow? Could trust bloom in a world ruled by fear? The monarch's burden was not just power, but the unending struggle to wield it wisely. In the shadowed corridors beneath the city, whispers traveled through secret meeting rooms where alliances forged in desperation teetered on the brink of shattering. Igris paced with careful deliberation, contemplating a multitude of voices, some loyal, many doubtful, a few open with veiled hostility. His spectral knights stood vigil, guardians of his sovereignty, yet even they were reminders of the inevitable solitude of power. The Hunter Association, fragmented and haunted, struggled to maintain order. Reports flooded in, gates opening unpredictably, unleashing terrors that seemed amplified by monarchical conflict. Amid the chaos, Cha Hae-in grappled with her own awakening. Monarch power coursed through her veins like molten light, exhilarating yet terrifying. In private moments, she questioned the cost of strength and the sacrifice it demanded. Her council was rife with tension. Factions debated strategy and survival. Distrust seethed beneath polite exchanges. Some hunters viewed monarch power as a salvation, others, a curse that would consume them all. Outside the council chambers, the city braced for storm. Wounds from battles past festered, yet hope flickered in whispers. Small victories, acts of courage, bonds forged under fire. Igris reflected on these mortal endeavors. To govern was more than command of shadows, it was to understand the fragility of the human spirit he once protected as a blade. In this fragile balance, the true burden of the monarch revealed itself, not dominion over life and death, but the stewardship of those who live and die beneath his shadow. The halls of power echoed with hushed conversations, moments suspended between hope and despair. Monarchs of varying realms watched the unfolding struggle through veils of shadow and light, each weighing the price of intervention, or abandonment. Within the city's heart, Igris convened with his closest council. Among them were once rival hunters turned uneasy allies, spectral knights whose loyalty was absolute, and advisors who whispered of ancient truths rarely spoken aloud. Discussions turned to the reckless opening of gates, portals torn by the escalating monarch conflict, letting loose creatures of nightmare and chaos. Igris's grip tightened on his spectral blade. "We cannot afford indecision," he commanded. "The realm's fate hinges on more than battles, it requires unity in the face of doom." A chilling chill passed through the room as an urgent message arrived. A new gate had opened near the city outskirts. The threat was unprecedented. An ancient monarch's champion had been released, their power vast and merciless. Cha Hae-in volunteered to lead the strike team, her monarch power flaring brightest in the coming conflict. Igris offered shadow support, their forces a blend of light and darkness united by a shared cause yet divided by their paths. The campaign was brutal from its inception. Monster hordes swarmed with ferocity, the champion a towering force twisting reality with raw monarch magic. The hunters fought with determination born of desperation, weaving strategies of steel and will that slowly pushed back the abyssal tide. In quieter moments, Igris wrestled with doubts. How much power was too much? How much of his soul must the monarch claim before he was lost to the shadows forever? As the battle raged, old alliances fractured, new bonds were forged in blood, and the city stood as a crucible for destiny itself. The battlefields at the city's edge bore witness to a clash both ancient and fierce. The gate's tear pulsed with unstable energy, spilling forth creatures born from nightmares and twisted realms, monsters whose hunger knew no bounds, shadows that writhed like living storms. Igris stood at the forefront, his presence chilling the air, commanding legions forged from the very darkness he now ruled. Clad in armor fused with ethereal fire, his spectral blade sang a deadly song, cleaving through beasts and chaos alike. Cha Hae-in moved alongside him, a beacon of fierce light cutting through shadow's veil. Her blades shone with fierce radiance, their dance a tempest of grace and raw power. Together, they commanded the hunters and monarch soldiers, orchestrating a desperate defense that teetered on the knife's edge between survival and obliteration. The carnage was relentless. Every clash demanded sacrifice, every victory came at a price. Igris felt the weight of leadership in every breath, each fallen comrade a scar etched in shadow. Yet even in the heart of devastation, moments of hope kindled, a mother rescued from maw, a child's laughter amid ruin. The war's theater spanned realms both corporeal and unseen. Monarchs beyond the city stirred, their influence rippling in waves of arcane force as they prepared for their final moves. In quieter moments, Igris sought counsel from Beru, the spirit of a loyal shadow knight, a ghost from a past slowly receding. Their conversations were laden with caution and courage, exploring the limits of power and the fragile thread of humanity that remained. Igris's doubts remained. Could he remain the monarch the world needed, or would he become the darkness he sought to conquer? The night stretched long, filled with blood, fire, and resolve. The moon bathed the city in a cold, silver glow as the weary soldiers returned from the battlefield, a procession marked by exhaustion, relief, and unspoken sorrow. The streets lay littered with the scars of war, shattered stone, smoldering fires, and the silent testimonies of fallen heroes. Igris retreated to his chambers, where shadows curled like living memories and silence pressed heavy against the stone walls. Alone, stripped of the command and spectacle, the monarch faced the true weight of his crown. Visions played behind closed eyelids, friends lost, alliances strained, victories stained with sacrifice. The specters of his past and future blurred into a mosaic of loss and hope. The man who once served Jinwoo now ruled by willpower and shadow, a king born of both loyalty and necessity. A soft knock shattered the stillness. A trusted aide entered with urgent news. Distant realms whispered of awakening forces, ancient monarchs stirring in response to the shifting balance. Igris rose, a flame rekindled in his eyes. His journey was far from over. Wars would rage, and new legends be born from ash and shadow. The burden of kingship was eternal, an unforgiving path lined with darkness and light entwined. As dawn crept beyond the horizon, Igris pledged to bear this burden with unyielding strength, a guardian not just of shadows but of the fragile hope kindled within the hearts of all. The creaking timbers of the warship groaned beneath the weight of impending conflict as the fleet sailed steadily toward the storm-ridden horizon. Dark clouds billowed overhead, roiling like vengeful spirits unleashed from the depths. Igris stood at the bow, his gaze fixed on distant lands ravaged by unchecked chaos. Gates stirred ominously across the continents, tears in reality widening as the monarch war escalated beyond city walls. Thunder cracked, a silent herald to the war that approached. Amidst the gathered monarch commanders, whispers of fear mingled with steely resolve. The unity forged in the crucible of earlier battles now faced its greatest test. Cha Hae-in approached, her armor gleaming against the slate sky, eyes fierce yet tempered by the weight of responsibility. The factions fracture further, she noted. Old grudges flare anew with the threat looming. We face not just monsters but ourselves. Igris nodded solemnly. The unity of shadow and light was fragile, tentative threads stretched tight over a precipice. The promise of victory demanded sacrifice, strategy, and an unbreakable will. As the fleet approached its destination, the first screams echoed, monstrous and primal, tearing through the air like the harbingers of doom. The final war was beginning. The battlefront stretched across jagged terrain, a living nightmare where the sky roiled with dark clouds and the ground trembled beneath the steps of monstrous feet. Gates pulsated with malignant energy, disgorging legions of creatures born of shadow and ruin. Igris stood at the center of the storm, his shadow soldiers weaving between foes like ghostly predators. They moved with lethal precision, cutting down wave after wave of abominations as steel met claw and flame met shadow. Cha Hae-in's radiant blades flared in blinding arcs, her movements a dance of grace and destruction. Together, shadow and light formed a tenuous alliance, a fragile beacon amid chaos. But the enemy was relentless. Dark monarch champions emerged, their powers shaking the very earth and warping reality. The hunters found themselves tested not just physically but in spirit, forced to confront doubts and fears deeper than any shadow. Amidst the carnage, alliances were tested and reforged in fire. Old wounds surfaced, new rivalries ignited. The war was not only a battle for survival but for the future soul of their world. Igris felt the weight of command crush and inspire in equal measure. The once loyal blade now bore the crown's full burden, balancing mercy and ruthlessness, hope and despair. Amidst fleeting moments of calm, he recalled the lessons from the spectral monarchs and the echoing words of Jinwoo's silent resolve. This war was more than monsters. It was a crucible for every soul caught between shadow and dawn. The nights grew darker, the air thicker with the scent of battle and smoke. Camps spread beneath torn skies like brittle patches of hope, where soldiers and hunters alike nursed wounds yet prepared for dawn's inevitable onslaught. Igris wandered among the firelight, his shadow soldiers silent sentinels in the gloom. Conversations flickered around him, tales of survival, grief, and quiet courage. He paused before a small group, a mother shielding her child, a elder comforting a warrior. In their eyes, he saw the true cost of monarch wars, the lives torn apart, dreams shattered but not extinguished. The monarch's burden was not only in battle plans or swords but in holding space for hope amid suffering. Meanwhile, whispers from the enemy grew louder, a faction of monarchs plotting dark pacts, seeking to unleash devastation beyond reckoning to tip the war in their favor. Igris and Cha-hae convened, their uneasy alliance tested by the weight of decisions and growing threats. Power without purpose is doom, she reminded him, her eyes reflecting the flickering fires. They strategized, pooling wisdom and strength, preparing not just for survival but for redemption, a chance to redefine what monarchs could be. The next battle would be decisive, a collision of destiny and resolve on a scale unseen. The horizon burned with the first light of battle as armies assembled, monarch soldiers clad in ethereal armor and hunters armed with blades honed through relentless strife. Igris and Cha-hae led the vanguard, their contrasting powers merging like the dawn's first rays piercing night's shadow. The battlefield became a maelstrom, a symphony of steel, magic, and raw will. Beasts twisted from nightmare clashed with disciplined hunter factions, monarchs wielded ancient powers beyond comprehension, and the very earth groaned beneath the fury unleashed. Amidst the chaos, moments of heroism shone bright, a soldier pushing beyond pain to protect comrades, a hunter standing unwavering in the face of oblivion. Igris moved like a phantom, shadows bending to his every command, his blade an extension of his indomitable will. Yet beneath every strike lay the weight of a monarch's sacrifice, decisions that would echo across realms, lives forever altered. As the sun climbed, victory hung in fragile balance, the cost measured not just in bodies but in hope. The war was far from over, but the rising storm revealed the unbreakable spirit kindled in the darkest shadows. Night cloaked the battlefield, but the war raged on, flares illuminating faces etched with exhaustion and determination. Smoke drifted like ghostly serpents, carrying with it the scent of blood and sacrifice. Igris stood firm amidst the chaos, his shadow soldiers weaving protective patterns around the weary and wounded. He understood that the survival of this fragile alliance hinged on more than valor. It required heart, trust, and an unyielding commitment. In the quiet moments between assaults, he sought solace in memories, Jinwoo's steadfast spirit, the unspoken bond they shared, and the fragile humanity he struggled to preserve. Reports arrived, ancient monarchs stirred in slumber, sensing the shifting tide. The coming battles would test not just armies but realities themselves. Cha-hae approached, her eyes reflecting the storm within her soul. "We stand at a crossroads," she said softly. "The choices we make now will shape the fate of all." Igris nodded. "And no matter the darkness, we must be the light that guides the way." As dawn approached, plans were set for a final stand, a clash that would define legends. The rising storm was far from over, but in their unity, shadow and light forged a beacon that dared to challenge the abyss. The heavy gates of the city ground open with a reverberating boom, revealing a scarred world beyond, a realm where shadows and light intertwined in eternal conflict. Igris surveyed the gathering storm with steady eyes. The enemy had coalesced, a force dark and merciless, led by monarchs who sought not balance but domination. The hunters prepared for the final battle, their armor worn but spirits unbroken. Among them, veteran fighters stood side by side with new warriors, united by the desperate hope of survival. Cha-hae moved through the ranks, her presence a beacon of courage and resolve. Plans were set, strategies honed. The battlefield was a crucible that would test every skill, every bond forged in hardship and trust. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the air thickened with tension, the anticipation of war distilled into silence before the storm. Igris took a deep breath, feeling the shadows pulse around him, a reminder of both his power and the price it exacted. The final hunt was upon them, a reckoning that would echo through time and realms beyond. The night was alive with murmurs of fear and steel. The metallic tang of anticipation mingled with the distant roars of monsters gathering beyond the horizon. Igris and Cha-Hae-in stood shoulder to shoulder, their combined might symbolizing the fragile unity of shadow and light. The armies moved as one, a living wave advancing on the gates of oblivion. The battlefield was a maelstrom of chaos, screams echoing across shattered landscapes, blades flashing with lethal intent, and magic crackling like wildfire. Each clash tested the limits of strength and spirit. Igris's mastery of shadows became their sanctuary, a shield woven of loyalty and power that held against the encroaching darkness. Yet even in the heart of battle, uncertainty loomed. Old wounds reopened, and new doubts crept into minds hardened by war. The final hunt was not merely a struggle for victory but a reckoning of morality, will, and the true meaning of power. Amidst the storm, moments of humanity flickered, a brave sacrifice, a whispered hope, a bond renewed. The war raged on, relentless and unforgiving, but within the tempest, the seeds of legend were sown. The battlefield unfolded like a tapestry woven from fire and shadow, a relentless surge of fury and desperation. Igris stood at the center of the storm, his shadow soldiers weaving through the maelstrom with silent precision. Each strike was a dance of death, a silent promise to protect what little light remained. Cha-Hae-in rallied the hunters, a blazing beacon cutting through despair with courage honed in countless battles. The clash of monarch magic and mortal will shook the earth, fracturing the very boundaries that separated realms. Every victory carved deep wounds into the heart of the war, every loss a scar that threatened to fracture their fragile alliance. Amidst the chaos, alliances were tested and reforged in fire. Betrayal and heroism stood side by side as warriors faced not just enemies but their own fears. Igris's resolve hardened. The monarch crown was a burden heavier than any sword. The final hunt demanded sacrifices beyond reckoning, and each decision echoed across time. As the storm reached its apex, a fragile hope endured, a testament to the spirit unbroken beneath shadow and flame. As dawn broke over the war-torn horizon, Igris surveyed the battlefield, an expanse marked by broken steel, shattered dreams, and the resolute will of those who refused to yield. The final battle had reached a breaking point. Monarch and hunter alike fought with desperation born of hope and sorrow intertwined. Igris's shadow soldiers moved with lethal elegance, forming an impenetrable barrier where needed and striking ruthlessly when opportunity arose. Cha-Hae-in led a charge that cut through enemy ranks, her blade glowing with celestial fire as she rallied her comrades forward. But the enemy had one last, terrible weapon, a monarch of oblivion, a dark force bent on erasing all from existence. The clash was cataclysmic. Reality itself trembled beneath the fury unleashed. Blades sang, magic exploded in dazzling cascades, and the very air seemed to warp with the raw energy of ancient powers clashing. In the midst of chaos, sacrifices were made. Heroes fell, legends rose, and the fate of the world hung in a brittle balance. Igris faced the monarch of oblivion in a duel that transcended time and space, a battle not just of strength but of willpower and soul. The clash echoed through realms, a tempest forging new legends amid shadow and light. The air crackled with the remnants of unleashed power as the monarch of oblivion and Igris clashed in a tempest of shadows and cosmic fury. Each strike reverberated through the realms, a collision of wills that bent the fabric of reality itself. Igris summoned every shard of strength and memory, the loyalty once sworn to Jinwoo, the sacrifices etched in shadow, and the indomitable hope flickering within. The monarch of oblivion wielded destruction with terrifying grace, seeking to unravel creation and silence the rising light. But Igris stood firm. With every strike, he carved a testament to resilience, shadow and light intertwined in a dance of defiance. Around them, the battlefield raged on, hunters and monarch soldiers alike fighting with desperation and valor. The decisive moment came like a breaking wave, when shadow and spirit fused, the monarch of Oblivion's power waned, and Igris's resolve pierced the void. Victory came not without cost. The field was stained with sacrifice, and the echoes of those lost lingered in the silence that followed. As dawn spread its gentle light, a fragile hope blossomed amid the ruins, a future forged through unity, sacrifice, and unyielding will. Igris, the Shadow Monarch, had faced oblivion and emerged not as a tyrant but a guardian, a beacon for those who would walk the line between shadow and dawn. As the dust settles on the battlefield and the echoes of war fade into memory, a new dawn rises for the shattered world. Igris, once a loyal shadow blade, now stands as the formidable Shadow Monarch, a guardian forged through sacrifice, loyalty, and the fires of relentless struggle. Part 1 of this epic saga has shown the birth of a monarch amidst ruin, the forging of fragile alliances, and the searing crucible of war that tests the limits of power and humanity. Yet, this is only the beginning. Though victory has been claimed, the shadows linger, and the light still flickers uncertain. Unseen forces stir in distant realms, and the true battles that will shape the fate of all are yet to come. The journey of Igris and the hunters continues, a path woven with hope, loss, and the eternal struggle between darkness and dawn. Join us in Part 2 as new